The one who's going to be joining me today need to get their spoon. Get their spoon. You're going to need to grab that spoon. All right? Greetings, 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 greetings. I am King Clifford Jefferson, a Senator Godfrey, the fifth Caliban Jew, the son of folk, the ruler of Jerusalem. I'm the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, or the Vicar of Christ, or which we call Melchizedek, the King of Righteousness. It is March 25th, 2025, which is equivalent to the birth year 2975. I greet you in the name of my Queen Sister Galveston from the House of Galveston. I greet you in the name of Archbishop Belmont from the House of Belmont. I greet you in the name of all officers and members of the Third Temple in the Church of England, as well as all those who are striving to be members. It is, once again, March 25th, 2025, which is equivalent to the birth year 2975. Today, I greet you with this marvelous lecture, which is called The Matrix, okay? The Matrix from a biological, a genealogical, and a historical overview, okay? So you do not want to miss this, especially if you are a member or striving to be a member of the Third Temple English Church of England, okay? Very important that you do not miss this lesson, okay? Greetings, Countess Cersei from the House of Cersei. Greetings, greetings. All right, this is going to be a beautiful lesson. All right, and once again, make sure you got your spoons. Everyone need to grab a spoon. Right, gotta have it. You gotta have it. We know that when we watch the movie The Matrix, the people who are portraying the movies are actors in the movie. So they're not the original people in the movie in which they're portraying. We know the movie has historical, symbolic narratives, as well as genealogical narratives, as well as what we call biological narratives that we have to overstand in regards to this matrix that we're subject to, and which the movie was trying to inform us on, but we were not listening. Okay? We were not listening. This is a result of not being able to understand transduction to the translation of incoming and outgoing signals. Okay? All right? Not being able to interpret incoming and outgoing signals. Okay? This is very important. It all has to do with biological and biochemistry and biophysics. Okay? Very important. Because this is what you need to understand if you're going to unplug from the matrix. Okay? You can stay connected to the matrix or you can unplug from the matrix. But in order for you to unplug from the matrix, you must know thyself. Isn't that what the Oracle said? To know thyself. How many of us out there really know ourselves? Okay, so we're going to have a long talk about this. We're going to have some narratives, okay? So we're going to make the connection between the historical, genealogical, and biological connection to the word or the term or the phrase, the matrix, okay? Very important. All right. And we're going to look at the characters and who they represented. But I'm not going to break this down to you. I'm going to let them break it down to you. Okay. And we're going to see their so-called prima facie evidence in regards to what they're saying it identifies versus my conclusive interpretation of what it is that they are saying. Okay. So without further ado, let's get started with this marvelous lecture. But in order for you to receive the light, understand the light, i.e., the signals, you must be able to receive the light. In order for you to do that, you must take off these shades because we know shades block light from entering. Okay? All right? We must be able to see the light. Okay? And when we see the light, it's through our ability to be able to see, visually see. Okay? To be able to hear, okay, to be able to smell, to be able to feel, okay. These are the what we call external faculties of ourselves to bring us awareness versus the external faculties of ourselves, okay. So once again, this is a lesson that you do not want that you do not want to miss. All right. So let's get started. We know in the movie The Matrix, Neo represents the one. Okay. His name was Mr. Anderson, but they identify him as Neo. Okay. And we got three main characters: Neo, Trinity, and Morpheus. Okay. We know Morpheus is the deity of dreams as well as form or shape. Trinity represents a three-dimensional state, which results in what we call some type of form or shape. Okay? Very, very, very important for you to understand that. And then you have Neo, the one. Okay? They all sought Neo in regards to claiming he was the one. All right? So we're going to get the narrative from the professionals because these are the actors. And then once they break it down, I'm going to break it down. Okay? And I'm going to show you the historical, genealogical, as well as biological connection to the story. Okay, not just me, not just members of the Third Temple English Church of England, but all those who should become members of the Third Temple English Church of England. Okay, with that, let's get started with this marvelous lecture. I just got to put one more thing up there. Hope you all enjoyed this. We're going to start here. Because we know Neo represents Jesus. And I'm the incarnation of Jesus, i.e., that Christ, i.e., that entity that represents the resurrection of consciousness. Okay? Consciousness, we know consciousness is a mental faculty about what it is that people exist in the physical world do not really understand. Okay? So we're just going to just get this quick little narrative. Hold that thought for 1 second. Actually, I got my Superman S. All right. This is going to be a really good one, brothers and sisters. All right. I've taught on this subject before, but the totality of it has just now came to fruition. Okay. So this is a really good subject, and I'm going to take my time with it. Okay. So let's get our narrative. Jesus' bloodline. We're going to go back there because we are the ancestors of Jesus, and Neo represents Jesus. Okay. And they came to look for Jesus. Trinity, Morpheus, and the whole clique was looking for this so-called the one. Okay, very important. All right. So we're taking this narrative because we understand that at one time Neo was captured by the Merovingian. Okay, he was captured by the Merovingian. All right. So it's very important to make that connection to this matrix story in regards to the historical, genealogical, and the what was it? The historical, genealogical, as well as biological connection of where they're going with it. All right. So let's get it. Michael Bagnard, Richard Lee, and Henry Lincoln developed. Oh, let me share my screen. Yes. Three wise men. I'm actually watching Matrix now. Michael Bagnett, Richard Lee, and Henry Lincoln developed and popularized the idea of a progeny descendant from Jesus and Mary Magdalene in their 1982 book, The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, published as The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail in the United States, in which they asserted We do not think the incarnation truly symbolized what it's intended to symbolize unless Jesus would marry and sire children, which means had descendants. Okay? Once again, the wise men are the Wittenmont. Okay? The wise men are the Wittenmont, and the Wittenmont are the Anglo-Saxon Berbers, like the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica said, no matter wherever they were and what and by whatever name they were called. These were the ancient Berbers. Okay? All right, so it says specifically they claimed that the Sangreal of medieval lore did not represent the Sangreal Holy Grail, the cup drunk from the Last Supper, but both the vessel of Mary Magdalene's womb and Sangreal, the blood wall of Jesus, represents in a lineage descendant from them. In their reconstruction, Mary Magdalene goes to France after the crucifixion, carrying a child by Jesus who 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 would originate a lineage, i.e., descendancy, that centuries later would unite with the so-called Merovingian rulers of the early Frankish kingdoms. Okay, from whom they traced their descent into medieval dynasties that were almost exterminated by the Albigensian Crusade, or this is called the Cathars Crusade. Okay, we're going to talk about that again. All right, very important. So we start with the Merovingian ruler. Okay, the founder of the Merovingian ruler was Clovis the First. Okay, we know Jesus was the descendant of God. All right, and he had descendants here on earth since he was a child of God. When we look up the Merovingian dynasty, okay, since we're talking about Merovingian rulers that claim to be of the bloodline of Jesus, okay, we have to look at that real quick. And we said the Merovingian dynasty was the ruling family of Franks from around the 5th century until Pepin the Short in 751. Okay, that's very important to understand. It also goes on to say the dynastic name medieval Latin Merovingi, sons of Merovec, derived from an unattested Frankish form akin to the attested Old English Merovingi, with a final ing being a typical dramatic patronymic suffix. The name derives from the Salian king Merovic, who is at the center of many legends. Unlike Anglo-Saxon royal genealogy, the Merovingians never claimed to descend from God, nor is there any evidence that they were regarded as sacred. So this is some historical as well as genealogical association with the movie called The Matrix, and what they claim uh, were in the movie called the Merovingians. Okay, and we see that the Merovingians have a historical connection to the progeny or the bloodline as stated during Jesus' family descent in France. Okay, that's very important for us to understand going on with this lesson. Right, very important. Now we come to all right. Now we come to one more thing, one more point I want to make. The first well-known Merovingian king was Childeric I, who died in 481. His son Clovis I died in 511, converted to the Nicene Christianity that we talk about the Nicene Council, united the Franks and conquered most of Gaul. The Merovingians treated their kingdom as a single yet divisible. Clovis' four sons divided the kingdom amongst themselves, and it remained divided until 679, with the exception for a short period, which is the time period you see before me on the screen. Okay? Greetings, Brother McGarry from the House of McGarry. With that in mind, okay, we go to the fleur de lis. Okay, because we know one of the symbols that France used is the fleur de lis. The fleur de lis, also spelled fleur de lis, is a common heraldic charge and is styled shape of the lily. Fleur, French fleur, and lis means flower or lily, respectively. Most notably, the fleur de lis is depicted on the traditional coat of arms of France that was used from the High Middle Ages until the French Revolution in 1792, and then again in a brief period in the 19th century. Okay? Very important for we understand that the fleur de lis represents the lily. Okay? Other European nations have also employed the symbol. The fleur-de-lis became at one and the same time religious, political, dynastic, artistic, emblematic, and symbolic, especially in French heraldry. The Virgin Mary and Saint Joseph are among saints often depicted with the lily. Very important to understand, my brothers and sisters, in lieu of this lesson. All right? Dealing with the Merovingians in the movie called The Matrix, which I'm about to break down to you. Okay? Here you see a 15th century manuscript depicting an angel sending the fleur de lis to Clovis from the Bedford's Hours in the British Library in London. Let me blow this up for you real quick. All right. There are the angels, two angels. Here's so-called God given a cross with three fleur-de-lis on it, and we know what the fleur-de-lis represents: the immaculate birth of Jesus, or Jesus' bloodline, or Jesus' progeny, going back to the Merovingian dynasty, which we read. Okay, and we know that the founder of it, or one of the founders, was Clovis the First, being handed the cross representing the descent or bloodline or progeny from which Jesus' descendants would come down from. Okay, which we know this is in fact false. Okay, it is false. Let's prove it. All right, all right. Now, when we look at that from a historical understanding relative to the movie called The Matrix, we also have to look at it in a biological standpoint. Okay, all right, as well as genealogical, because genealogical and biological go hand in hand because they represent genes, genetics. Okay, so that's very important that we take a look at that for the term matrix. Okay, matrix. Before we go into our narrative, matrix in biology, because we are a part of biology. Okay, we have a composition made up of biology, biophysical and biochemical. Okay, we have a biochemical and biophysical makeup, and this is our matrix that we have to unplug from. Okay, very important, very important. So, in definition, in biology, not being loose or loosely with it, in biology, matrix, plural matrix, is the material or tissue in between a eukaryotic organism cell. Okay? In biology, the matrix is a material or tissue, flesh, mass, matter, volume, in between a eukaryotic organism cell. The structure of the connective tissue is an extracellular matrix. Fingernails and toenails grow from the matrix or matrix. It is found in various connective tissue. It serves as a jelly-like structure instead of cytoplasm in connective tissue. Everyone needs to understand that, okay? We need to understand matrix and biology to make the connection to ourselves because we all need to understand, according to the matrix, because that was the oracle told Neo to know thyself. Okay? And apparently Neo didn't know himself. He doubted himself. Okay? Very important for us to make that connection. All right? Matrix, biology. All right? With that in mind, okay. It says matrix in biology is the tissue. That brings me to the word or the term melanin. Okay? Melanin. So let's look at that real quick. Melanin, because our tissue was created as a result of what we call melanin. Let's look up that real quick. Because it's biological and genealogical as well as historical. Okay? Genealogical, biological, and historical. Okay? To Jesus' family line, which we're going to prove in the Merovingian were not of the bloodline of Jesus, okay, or the persons they identify as Jesus. And we know, according to the movie Matrix, his name was what we call Mr. Anderson, okay? That was his so-called surname, Anderson, okay? So we got to look at that as well. So we won't be mistaken in anything that we say here today, all right? So we're looking at melanin because we know the matrix is the tissue. The matrix is the tissue. In human skin, melanogenesis is initiated by the exposure of UV radiation, causing the skin to darken. Eumelanin is an effective absorbent of light. Okay? Light. When we talk about light, we talk about energy. Okay? We talking about 0 point energy. Okay? And we know energy is called kinetic energy, which is called or governed by what we call thermodynamics. The pigment is able to dissipate over 99.9% of absorbed UV radiation. Because of this property, eumelanin is thought to protect skin cells from UVA and UVB radiation damage, reducing the risk of foliar depletion and thermal degradation. Exposure to UV radiation is associated with the increased risk of malignant melanoma, a cancer or of melanocytes of melanin cells. Okay, so we are given what we call melanin to protect us here in this what we call three-dimensional world, which we call space-time, which is part of what we call the universe, which is part of the solar system, which is part of this planet, what we call Earth. Okay, and we are terrestrial beings here on this Earth, and we are composed of something in which we don't realize. Okay, we are light beings. We're not seeing ourselves as light, and that's the problem. Okay. Very important. So in human skin, melanogenesis begins with UVA radiation, which causes the skin to darken, which is protection from the light as a result of uh, uh, what's taking place underneath the skin. Okay, because we said the matrix in biology represents the tissue, so that melanin protects everything that's going on within this spacesuit. Okay, all the connections within your body and which it is made of is being protected by that melanin, okay? But yet the information that gives the information for the spacesuit to function properly is based upon light, and that's governed through the process of transduction. Because through the ability to be able to interpret those electrical signals by way of impulse, by way of transduction, the body does what it needs to do to protect you till the body is no longer needed. Okay? Very important, plain and simple. You're hooked to the matrix, but you're going to have to unhook to the matrix from the matrix. So how do we do that? Okay, we must know ourselves. All right, we must know ourselves. So we must look at the process what we call neuromelanin. Neuromelanin. All right, neuromelanin. Neuromelanin is a dark pigment found in the brain, which is strictly related to melanin. It is a polymer of 5 to 6 dihydronucleotide monomers. Neuromelanin is found in large quantities in catecholaminic parts of, I'm pronouncing these some big words. Catecholaminic cell, part cell. I ain't gonna be able to get that. Catecholaminic cells of the substantia nigra, pars compacta, and locus coeruleus, giving a dark color to the structure. Okay, so we know melanin and we know neuromelanin. It's very important to understand your composition, my brothers and sisters. Understand your composition. Synthetic pathways, okay? Synthetic pathways, very important. Neuromelanin is directed biosynthesized from L-dopa precursors to dopamine by tyrosine hydrolase and aromatic acid dicarbonylase AADC. Alternatively, synaptic vesicle and endosomus accumulates cytolytic dopamine via vesicular monoamine transporter, i.e., the VMAT2 gene, and transport it to the mitochondrial DNA, where it is metabolized by the monoamine oxidase. Okay? The vesicular monoamine transporter, or the VMAT2 gene, or the God gene, is transported into the mitochondrial DNA. This is what they call the eukaryotic cell. The eukaryotic cell is responsible for the state of evolution, which is done through what we call the mitochondrial DNA and RNA. Okay? Mitochondrial DNA. This results from the eukaryotic cell, which is responsible for all life on the planet, from non-matter to living matter. Okay? The circular monoamine transporter, and transport it to the mitochondrial DNA, which is responsible for what? Reproduction. Okay? Reproduction. As I said, this is called the God gene. I don't have to go back. I don't have time to go back and revisit what I just said for the sake of the lesson. Okay? So you have to put your thinking caps on. The God gene, or the VMAT2 gene, dealing with neural melanin, which is a protection given from the gods to actually perceive our external selves, contrast to our external selves, okay? Because this is where the need for transparency comes in, okay? Transparency, being able to actually see yourself. I hope y'all got y'all spoon. You don't need it, okay? The God gene hypothesis proposed that human spirituality is influenced by hereditary, and that a specific gene called vesicular monoamine transporter to, i.e., VMAT2 gene, predisposes humans towards spiritual or mystic experiences. Did you hear that? The idea has been proposed by geneticist Dean Harmer in 2004 book called The God Gene: How Faith and Hardwired into our Gene. You hear that? You see behind me? That's the image. We hardwired, brothers and sisters. The God gene, or the VMAT2 gene, or the neuromelanin or melanin, i.e., that ability to be able to absorb light. Okay, not just absorb it, but understand it by interpreting light. The God gene hypothesis is based on a combination of behavioral genetics, neurobiological, and psychological studies. What is behavioral genetics? Let's look at that. Behavioral genetics, also referred to behavioral genetics, is a field of scientific research that uses genetic methods to investigate the nature and origins of individual differences in behavior. This is why we all act different. Okay? This is why we all act different. Okay? Very, very important for you to understand that. All right? Very important for you to understand. And don't forget what I just said. Because if you understand the God gene, then you are in fact descendants of God. Okay? But knowing this, all right, when we're going back into the God gene, VMAT2 gene, dealing with neuromelanin or melanin, which is a gift of the gods that allow us to exist here in this terrestrial sphere, based upon the air breathed by a mortal, because we know that the human composition is based upon our organic composition. So let's take a look at that real quick before we move on with this lesson. Let's look at the human body. Okay? The human body, my brothers and sisters. You're never going to hear nothing like this anywhere else but at the Third Temple English Church, because this is the mothership. Okay? This is the mothership, and each of you are individual shams. Okay? Each individual crafts. Your body is a suit. Okay? It is a suit that fills space as a result of you being subject to time. And that's only as a result you not remembering your past. All right? Because your past dictates your future as a result of applying your past to your present. Okay? These are called instructions. Okay? Through what we call cell lineage. The human body is the entire structure of a human being. It is composed of many different types of what? Cells. Cells are composed of what we call molecules, and molecules are composed of atoms that together create tissue and subsequently organs and then organ systems. If everyone agrees with me what I just said, please give me a thumbs up in the chat. The external human body consists of a head, hair, neck, torso, which includes the thorax, abdomen, genitals, arms, head, legs, and feet. The external human body includes organs, teeth, bones, muscles, tendons, ligaments, blood vessels, and blood lymphatic vessels, as well as lymph. Okay? All this was a result of moving from one dimension to two dimension to three dimension, which you're all now. Going into fourth dimension. Okay? The study of the human body includes the anatomy, physiology, histology, and embryology. The body varies anatomically in known ways. Physiology focuses on the system and organs of the human body and their functions. Many systems and mechanisms interact in order to maintain homeostasis with safe levels of substances such as sugar, iron, oxygen in the blood. The body is studied by health professionals, psychologists, anatomists, and artists to assist them in their work. If they study it, so should you. Okay? This is what we do here at the Third Temple English Church. We know ourselves. Okay? Not just what we see from the external look of our bodies to what we see with our eyes. Okay? Because the eyes are the windows to the soul. Okay? The eyes are the windows to the soul. So we must look at ourselves externally and internally. If you're looking at yourself internally, you cannot do it with the mind, the brain, or the eyes, or the nose, or the eyes, or the ears, or any other faculties. You must do it with the mind, okay? Because it's an internal faculty and it's not subject to body, mass. This is energy, okay? The mind is energy, okay? So we must understand ourselves as energy, potential energy, because we don't have the fullest energy yet within ourselves as a result of not remembering ourselves, okay? This is why they look to Neo, the so-called Jesus, to answer the questions. Know thyself, okay? The oracle told me he ain't too bright. All right, let's see. The human body is composed of what? Elements. All right? Elements, including hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, calcium, and phosphorus. These elements reside in trillions of cells and non-cellular components of the body. Did you hear that? So before the state of evolution, we're going into what we call cells or cells lineage, because that information you must know as well. Okay? You must know as well. All right? So let's look at the cells on a biological and biochemical level. All right? The body contains trillions of cells, the fundamental unit of life. At maturity, there are roughly 30 trillion cells and 38 trillion bacteria in the body. All right? This is before you even evolve. All right? 38 trillion bacteria in the body and estimated arriving at by totaling the cell number of all the organs of the body and cell types. The skin of the body also hosts a billions of commensal organisms as well as immune cells. Now, all parts of the body are made from cells. Cells sit in an extracellular matrix that that consists of proteins such as collagens surrounded by extracellular fluid. Okay, what is the matrix of biology? It's the eukaryotic cell. Okay, the eukaryotic cell. So, in 99% of the total biological, biochemical, i.e., on what we call a genetic level, okay, or a biological or a chemical level, we have 3% nitrogen, 10% hydrogen, 18% carbon, and 65% oxygen. What did Morpheus tell Neo in the Matrix? He said, "What you think you breathing oxygen?" Didn't he say that? He told Neo, "What you think you breathing oxygen right now?" We must understand it, brothers and sisters. Okay, so we must know our genome. Okay, genome. Cells in the body functions because of our DNA. All right. DNA sits within the nucleus of a cell. This is called the double helix. Okay. It's called the double helix. Here, parts of the DNA are copied and sent to the body of the cell via RNA. The RNA is then used to create proteins, which form the basis for cells, their activity, and their products. Proteins dictate cells' functions and gene expressions, i.e., what they call it uh, genetic behaviors. Okay, once again, God gene VMAT2 gene deals with genetic behaviors, why we behave the way we do. The RNA is then used to create proteins which form the basis for cells, their activity, and their product. Protein dictates cell function and gene expression. A cell is able to self regulate by the amount of proteins produced. However, not all cells have DNA. Some cells, such as mature red blood cells, lose their nucleus as they mature. This is called maturity of the cell. All right. Very, very important to see yourself from this level, okay, and not from these levels, such as tissues, cells, tissues, organs, such as the heart, okay, the gallbladder system, the circulatory system, okay, the digestive system, okay, the endocrine system, the immune system, the integumentary system, the lymphatic system, the musculoskeletal system. This is your makeup, but it depends upon what? The nervous system, okay? The nervous system. Very, very, very important because your nervous system operates based upon what we call transduction. What is transduction? We talked about this already, but we have to go through it again. All right. Transduction and physiology. We got to know ourselves, my brothers and sisters. Okay. Internally and externally. Okay. All right. We got to understand ourselves from how we see ourselves with our five senses, and we have to understand ourselves or how we perceive ourselves with our conscious mind. And the conscious mind is not even attached to your body. Your brain is, but your body ain't. Okay. So your brain is the actual computer board. I'm not even gonna get into that lesson. I actually did lessons on the platform, so please check that out. The body's a computer. Okay. So going forth, transduction physiology. In physiology, transduction is the translation of arriving stimulus into an action potential by a sensory receptor. It begins with a stimulus changes the membrane potential of a sensory receptor. Everyone hold that thought. Sorry about that. So in physiology, transduction is the translation of arriving stimulus into a action potential by sensory receptors and begins with stimulus changes in the membrane, a potential of a sensory receptor. A sensory receptor converts the energy in a stimulus into an electrical signal. Receptors are broadly split into two main categories, external and internal. Okay? Extra receptors which receive external sensory stimuli and internal receptors which receive internal sensory stimuli. Okay, very important. So I'm saying. So when you look at your faculties, such as taste, touch, smell, sight, that's external versus internal, which is the process of interpreting electrical signals that result from a stimuli, stimulation. Okay, very important, especially going to the topic we're about to go into now. Okay? And this brings you to the last one, embryogenesis. Okay? Embryogenesis. Embryogenesis is the natural process for which life arises from non-living matter, such as simple organic compound. So this would make sense now if you're looking at yourself as an organic organism. Okay, it should only make sense if you're looking at yourself as an organic organism. Are you looking at yourself as an organic organism? Give me a thumbs up in the chat line. Okay. The prevailing scientific hypothesis is that the transition from non-living to living entities on Earth was not a single event, but a process of increasing complexity involving the formation of habitable planets and the prebiotic synthesis of organic molecules, all right, molecular self-replication, self-assembly, autocatalysis, and the emergence of cell membrane, okay? So we understand that when we're dealing with melanin, or neuromelanin. We know neuromelanin gave birth to what we call the God gene or the VMAT2 gene, all right, making our spiritual connection from spiritual or etheric entities to what we call entities manifested as matter or mass, volume, etc. Okay, because it's said from non-living matter to matter. Okay, very important for you to understand that. That started the process of evolution. Okay? The process of evolution. Let's see what else I have here. Okay, and I want to come here as well. I might as well. Okay? That takes me to what we call cell lineage. Okay? Cell lineage. All right? You got to know your cells, brother. I can't do it. This, like the movie Knowing, right? Just because you know things here in the physical world, and don't mean that you're gonna be able to go to the spiritual world because the information that was here in the physical world were the keys to the spiritual world. But Nicholas Cage did not get to know it. He didn't take the time to know it. As a result of that, he did not get the chance to go. This is why I'm informing you as a result of the transition that's going to take place as a result of you being able to see yourself through what we call transparency. Okay? So let cell lineage denotes the development history of a tissue. We know the tissue is what? The matrix of the eukaryotic cell, and the eukaryotic cell starts to form of what we call mitochondrial DNA, okay? Which starts what we call a fertilized egg, okay? A fertilized egg. This is based on the tracing of the organism's cellular ancestry due to the cell division and relocation as time progresses. This is called evolution. It starts with the originator cell and finishing with the mature cell that can no longer what? Cell divide. Okay, this is called cell division, brothers and sisters. It's called cell division. All right. One more thing. All right, so let's get started. Only you can turn your God gene on, and only you can turn your God gene off. Okay? All right. So if your God gene is turned on, then you must not only know the historical, you must also know the biological and genealogical connection like Neo had. Neo came to understand because he at one time didn't understand the connection to the oneness. Okay, when everybody else thought he was the one, he didn't even know it. Okay, so just like Neo had to go through a transition of knowing himself, I had to go do the same. You have to do the same. Okay. It's very important because we all have the God gene on us, okay? But it determines the gene is determined by our genetic behaviors, okay? Our genetic behaviors, okay? Our genetic behaviors. All right, all right. Without further ado, let's get started. Merovingian. Let's start there because they said that the Merovingian, Jesus' bloodline descended from the Merovingians, okay? And it also goes into the Albigensian Crusade, okay? So let's first disqualify the Merovingians because we already said Merovingian dynasty created by Clovis I never claimed to be descended from God like the Anglo-Saxons, okay? That's what they said, all right? So let's look at the movie and get their interpretation of the Merovingians, all right? Let's get it. Like, share, subscribe, brothers and sisters. Like, share, subscribe, as well as free and common soakage is welcome. Now, the devil gonna tell you the truth. He ain't gonna lie to you, okay? Now they trying to say that Jesus descended from the Merovingian king. The Merovingian said they never descended down from God. So he told the truth. Okay, from a historical standpoint and from a genealogical standpoint, now we're about to see it from the biological standpoint. Okay, we're about to see it from that standpoint. Let's see it.
In Matrix Reloaded, the Merovingian became a crucial figure.
Let me know. Let me know if you can hear it.
Appearing in Matrix Reloaded, the Merovingian became a crucial figure, straddling the fringes between humanity and machines. In Matrix Resurrections, his reintroduction as a drifter gives us an even more complex view of his role within the Matrix universe and our own. Now, what would you think if I told you that the Merovingian represents the devil and that his tale is of a program that wanted to become the architect? Welcome to Matrix Explained.
Can you hear it?
We first met the Merovingian. We already knew that he was a powerful being in the Matrix, but we just didn't know how powerful. The Merovingian is a program that survived all the simulations, from the old ones, where the architect continually failed.
Can you hear it?
This program has helped other programs escape the Matrix, but not for some altruistic ideal. He did it because he seeks influence and power, including the abilities of his creators. But we will talk about that a little later. To understand the parallels between the Merovingian and the devil, we first need to explore the legend of Lucifer. According to Judeo-Christian tradition, Lucifer was an extraordinary, beautiful, and intelligent angel, one of the creator's favorites. He was so absorbed in his beauty and wisdom that he began to envy the power of God.
Now remember, the Merovingians never claimed to descend down from God like the Anglo-Saxon. All right, remember that.
God, this
Okay, thank you.
conspire with other angels in an attempt to rebel against God. The rebellion sparked a heavenly war in which Lucifer managed to persuade of the angels to join his cause. After an epic battle, he and his followers were defeated and expelled from heaven. They were turned into demons and were condemned to spend eternity in hell.
Any better?
However, God uses Lucifer, now known as the devil, as an instrument to test the faith and virtue of humans on earth. Now, the story's parallels with the Matrix villain are equal parts subtle and obvious. For example, the Merovingian's club is called Club Hell, and black and red are two very prominent colors in the nightclub. We delved into the Merovingian story and motivations. We realized that these are similar to Luzbel's. Just like Lucifer rebelled against God, the Merovingian seems to have rebelled against his creators, which in this case would be the higher entities of the Matrix, the Architect and the Oracle. The Merovingian leads other programs that have been expelled or have opted for exile from the core Matrix, similar to how Lucifer leads the demons in hell. A crew member from the art department talked about the painting in the Merovingian's chateau. The painting illustrates a battle of angels.
This mural is a symbol of the Matrix, but in sort of a Renaissance or medieval theme. This is medieval times, and there's the rest of us. This is all us humans on Earth battling it out. And then above that, we've got heaven with the angels. But the angels aren't really just angels. The angels are actually manipulating what's going on Earth.
This description.
Okay, so she said that showed something that was occurring in the medieval times. That's what she said. All right, a war in heaven and a war on earth. Okay, and this is occurring at the medieval time, and the Merovingians lived at the medieval times. Okay, are y'all seeing the connection? All right, let's continue.
Of the angels is quite interesting. That the angels aren't just angels, they are manipulating what is happening on Earth, resulting in the humans fighting each other, meaning that these supposed angels are the instigators and perpetuators of war.
And who's at the center of heaven but Mur himself? So it's all about him. Again, he's controlling everything that's going on in heaven and everything that's happening on Earth.
When Neo was trapped in Mobile Ave, the Merovingian demanded one thing from Trinity in exchange for Neo, the Oracle's eyes, the ability to see into the future. The Merovingian might have been corrupted in his quest for power, and he began to envy his parents, the god.
So he wants the Oracle's eyes to see in the future. He can see into the future. But with the Oracle's eyes, without the Oracle, but he can see into the past because the Merovingian was the one who wrote our past, which we forgot. And that past is the Matrix. Okay? All right? We are the batteries that keep the Matrix going. Okay? This will be explained in another clip. Okay?
Gods of the Matrix, the Oracle and the Architect. Then a war happened between the creators and the rogue programs led by the Merovingian. Perhaps the Merovingian had desires to be the new architect, just as Lucifer wanted to be God. We know from the Matrix Reloaded that the Merovingian had programming talents similar to the architect.
What you see, I have sent this very special desert. I wrote it myself.
But when could this have happened? When did the Merovingian go against his father? The early versions of the Matrix, Paradise and Nightmare, could be when the power struggle began. Maybe the architect created the Merovingian as one of his most important guardians of the Paradise simulation.
The first Matrix I designed was quite naturally perfect. It was a work of art, flawless, sublime. A triumph equaled only by its monumental failure.
Perhaps he was even created to learn the peculiarities of humans. The Merovingian's way of viewing life as cause and effect is very similar to the architect's way of thinking.
He's very, very old. He's one of the oldest and meanest programs in the Matrix. He's really sort of one of the kings of the underworld, a personification of all forms of indulgence. And that reveals, obviously, a lot about him and his philosophy. His philosophy is causality, and basically that is the philosophy of the entire machine world, the entire Matrix.
Then the first failure occurred. Humans began to reject the paradise simulation because it was too perfect. This may be where the Merovingian becomes obsolete and becomes the first program to go against its code. He officially becomes a fallen angel, and then the Nightmare Matrix is created.
As I redesigned it, based on your history, to more accurately reflect the varying grotesqueries of your nature. However, I was again frustrated by failure.
It was possibly during the Nightmare Matrix when the Merovingian began to build his influence and attract other programs to his cause. After the Oracle added the illusion of choice to the equation, the first integral anomaly occurred. The Merovingian himself claimed that he has survived several anomalies.
Mark my words, boy, mark them well. I have survived your predecessors, and I will survive you.
Keeping the keymaker waiting for Neo could have been the Frenchman's purpose. Perhaps the architect allowed him to live to test the One, in the same way that Satan tested Jesus. This would explain the Merovingian social standing in the second and third Matrix movies. But by the fourth, he has nothing.
This is very important. All right. There's going to be a scene when Neo gets shot 14 times when he's fighting Mr. Smith. Okay, when he's trying to get out the Matrix. Okay, we're going to talk about that in a second. Right? We almost finished the script.
Nothing left. This shows that the Merovingian was working for the Matrix, but now he is on the lam from those who now control the Matrix. Now, what does the vagabond status of the Merovingian mean in Matrix Resurrections? This is where things get even more interesting. In biblical tradition, the devil, or Satan, is often in a state of exile. It is said that he was banished from heaven and that he roams the earth, tempting humanity. In the fourth Matrix film, the Merovingian is living in
Earth. We say Earth, we're talking about mass. We're talking about mass, we're talking about volume. We're talking about volume, we're talking about things that exist within the three-dimensional world. All right? Very, very important to understand that, not just in the physical, but as well as in what they call the biological or biochemical. All right? Looking at things from its original makeup. Okay? If you see it that way, there will not be any illusions. Okay? Very important.
Hiding, a far cry from his previous position of power and luxury. This scenario could be a parallel to the idea of the devil in the desert, a place of temptation and isolation. What's even more disreputable is his transformation from someone with power to a drifter. This could be a symbolism of Lucifer's fall from heaven to hell, a decline in grace and status that relegates him to a lesser status. But of course, the Merovingian is not the only reference to Judeo-Christian theology. There are other characters with names like Trinity, which still refers to the Christian theology concept, as well as the Messiah archetype that is fulfilled by Neo, who died and rose again to save humanity. But do you agree? Was the Merovingian the Matrix's personification of the devil?
Experience as something extraordinary. At our French restaurant Le Vrai, we pay attention to every detail in our ingredients. Come and try our special dessert designed to the best. No other choice.
All right. We're going to hear another one. Okay? Very important. Since we know the Merovingian represents the devil, and we see that Neo represents Jesus Christ, okay, or the One, or the Enlightened One, okay, which he didn't even know he was the one. That means that he had to come to a understanding or overstanding as a result of knowing himself, okay? Everyone depended upon Neo finding himself, okay? How many of you have found yourself? Okay, let's see. All right, it's a result of how we see things in life. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about that. Okay, everyone ready? Let's get it.
Matrix. So first, Neo, that's an in the Matrix. So first, Neo, that's an anagram of
The one.
the one. You had to dip your head at the one. you can't non-act that expression. The one.
The one.
So that's the one.
Right.
All right. He's the savior.
Right.
All right. So now watch.
The Christ.
Yeah. Okay. So
Buddha.
now watch. Early in the film, he wakes up from his
Right.
And there's someone knocking at the door. He's 2 hours late.
I know.
And apparently he hacked something for them.
Right.
And is about to give them. And so he says, "Wait a minute." He goes back,
A
rummages
computer
through a thing,
right.
gives him a disc.
Thing. Right.
And the guy says,
Hallelujah. You're my savior, man. My own personal Jesus Christ.
"You're my savior. You're my regular
Yeah.
Jesus Christ."
Yeah. You're
That-
my own personal Jesus Christ.
That's a script line.
That's right there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right there.
Right there. Okay. But let's not stop there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we keep going. There's the part where he gets brought into the Nebuchadnezzar
Mm-hmm.
for the first time.
Mhm.
So he's still wrapped and looking around. And there's Joey
Pants.
Joey Pants.
Yeah, Joey Pants. Yeah.
Pantaleano.
Pantaleano.
Pantaleano. And he's there and he's just looking. And then that character, Cypher,
Mhm.
is startled. He says, "Oh, you scared the bejesus out of me."
Whoa! Neo. You scared the bejesus out of me.
Tonight, you've got the all-new Caesar's Palace online casino. With live dealer roulette, baccarat, craps, and black.
Yep, that's two.
Okay, so hang on.
Yeah, that's two. Yeah.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Who betrays the group?
Cypher.
Cypher.
Yes.
He betrays.
He's the Judas.
Who? He's Judas.
Yeah, he's the Judas. Yeah.
He's Judas.
Yeah.
After the bejesus was scared out.
Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't have Jesus in
He
him.
doesn't have Jesus in him.
Okay.
Nope.
All right, but let me
He
keep
wanted to
going.
stay
Keep
hooked
going.
up to the
Okay?
Matrix.
If you can.
Up-
Because you think you know the movie better than I do.
Well,
And you might.
I don't know.
You might.
My
Let's go.
Here's the
Let's
difference.
go.
It's my favorite movie, and you've made 100 movies.
Right.
So, okay.
All right.
All right. So then everyone sort of decides that he's the one.
He's the one.
Right. When he's like pulling Trinity up
Oh,
from the
yes.
helicopter
Yeah, yeah.
as it comes in.
Yeah.
He is the one.
I told you he is the one.
He is the one.
Do you believe it now, Trinity?
That was good. I don't know what it means to compliment you on exactly imitating what you were paid to do in a movie. And I would say, "Hey, you should be that character."
Now remember, Morpheus is the god of dreams. The dreams is what we physically see as a result of how we see the world through our external faculties. Okay? All right? Very important for you to understand that. And we know the word Morpheus means shape or form. We know the formation or the shape of things resulted from mass. Because in order for you to have shape, you must have volume for things to have room to have form or shape. Okay? Very important to understand science in the conversation. Okay? Very important to understand that. And they're representing that Neo represents Jesus. Okay? Continue.
Too late. Already been done.
No, but the good thing is, you're not imitating that character. You were that character.
Yes. Yes.
Even that.
Yes.
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 Yes. So let's fast forward towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
He gets shot point blank
Right.
by Smith.
Yes. Yes.
Then he drops. keeps firing into him. Okay? Just, all right. Do you know how many bullets he put in him?
I don't.
You don't.
I don't.
I will tell you.
Tell me.
Okay. It requires a little bit extrapolation.
Okay.
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 The bullets you see,
Mm-hmm.
it's like 4 bullets point blank to the chest.
Okay.
At that point, we go back to the Nebuchadnezzar,
Mm-hmm.
and you see his body responding.
Yes. Right.
Okay. But what if you track the rate that bullets are being fired?
Yeah.
And continue them into that scene?
Mm-hmm.
Then we come out of the scene,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a few more bullets that you observe.
Right.
That's 14 bullets.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
There are 14 stations of the cross
I didn't
in
know
a
that.
Catholic church.
I didn't know that.
Now, for non-Catholics out there, in every church, Catholic church, typically in the pillars that surround the main open area,
Yeah.
from the side areas, mounted facing inward, are 14 drawings, paintings, relief
Got it.
maps of the 14. They're called stages of the cross.
Got it.
Okay,
Yeah.
and they're key moments in
the life.
Jesus's life,
Oh.
and it's an early movie, really.
Oh.
The word movie doesn't even exist.
Exactly.
Right, but a
But
sequence.
it's visual.
It's a visual sequencing.
Representation.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's all of it, and it's
Interesting.
he's tried under Pontius Pilate.
Uh-huh.
He carries the cross.
Uh-huh.
He's put up on the cross.
Oh.
He dies on the cross.
Oh, yeah,
okay?
yeah. Got it.
So it's all that you can look it up on any.
Okay.
You know, you can
14
find
stages
them.
of the cross.
Yes.
14 bullets.
Okay, let's talk about that. 14 stations of the cross, or 14 bullets representing Neo's getting shot 14 times. Okay. All right. So let's look at that, or let's discuss the stations of the cross. All right. Let's look at that. Because he referenced it, but didn't break it down. Okay. So we have to break it down. The station of the cross, or the ways of the cross, also known as the way of sorrows, or the Via Crucis, are a series of images depicted in Jesus Christ on the day of his crucifixion and accompanying prayers. The station grew out of the imitation of the Via Dolorosa in Jerusalem, which is a traditional processional route symbolizing the path Jesus walked to Mount Calvary. Now, we already made the connection with Jesus Christ, progeny associated with the Merovingian dynasty. We also know that the Merovingian dynasty, as historically, never descended down from God. It means that Jesus could not be descended of Merovingian because Jesus was the Son of God. All right? And we understand in the movie, The Matrix, Neo represents Jesus, okay, who is not just to deliver himself, but everybody on the Nebuchadnezzar, as well as everyone who in Zion, from the hands of which was created by the Merovingians, okay? Very important to understand that, okay? Very important for you to understand that. Let's read a little bit more. Let's go to history. Very important. History. Because we're taking a movie scene and looking at the narratives of the movie scene, who are actors narrating a scene in the movie, and one scientist and one actor is discussing the historical, well, I wouldn't say historical, but the religious aspect of what the 14 shots of Neo, i.e., represent Jesus Christ, represent. Okay, so I'm going to make the historical connection in regards to the genealogical and biological connection to the Jesus Christ true paternal family by way of transparency. Okay, by way of clear transparency. Okay, in regards to the movie Matrix concerning the statue station of the 14th cross, the 14 station of the cross. Okay. The Station of the Cross originated from, you hear this? The Station of the Cross originated from the pilgrimage of Jerusalem in Roman Judea and a desire to reproduce the Via Dolorosa. Imitating holy places was not a new concept. For example, the religious complex of San Stefano in Bologna, Italy, replicating the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and other religious sites, including the Mount of Olives and the Valley of Josaphat. Following the siege of 1187, we're talking about the history concerning the stages of the cross. Everyone needs to pay close attention, okay? But we understand that they said the origin of Jesus' progeny according to Jesus' bloodline. 1 second, everyone. Sorry, everyone. All right, where we at? The station cross originated from the pyramids of the Jerusalem and Roman Judea and desired to reproduce the Via Dolorosa. Imitating holy places was not a new concept. For example, the religious complex of Santo Stefano in Bologna, Italy, replicated the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and other religious sites, including the Mount of Olives and the Valley of Josaphat. Following the siege of 1189, Jerusalem fell into the forces of Saladin, the first sultan of Egypt and Syria. 40 years later, members of the Franciscan religious order were allowed back into the Holy Land. Their founders, Francis of Assisi, held the Passion of Christ in special veneration and is said to have been the first person to receive stigmata. In 1217, Francis also found the custody of the Holy Land to guard and promote the devotion to the Christian holy places. The Franciscan efforts were recognized by Pope Clement VI, officially proclaiming them the custodians of the holy places since 1342. So we're talking about the Franciscan order, and we also had the Dominican orders, and both of those orders were orders that originated from the Benedictine monastery orders that were created by Saint Benedict of Nursia, going back to the English Benedictine order created by our Jesus Christ, King Edward the Peaceful. And their way up in 1187, in regards to the Station of Christ, or the 14th Station of Christ, which said the historical relation to that has to go into what we call the siege of 1187. And this is what we call the siege of Jerusalem. So they're connecting the movie The Matrix and the scene from the movie Matrix in regard to the 14 shots of Neo representing Jesus and representing the stations of the cross, the 14 stations, all right? And that has to do with or reference the siege of Jerusalem in 1187, an actual timeline to an event that took place, because we understand that this is around the third or the fourth crusade, all right? And we understand that some of those leaders in the crusade were descended from the Merovingian descendants, okay? Which apparently represent, as the Matrix movie representation analysis said, the devil's side of the family. But we know that the Merovingians under Clovis I never descended down from the Anglo-Saxons, who were actually descended from God, okay? Very important. So let's go to here. The siege of Jerusalem, 1187, since the 14 stations of the cross has to deal with that, okay? Let's go into that. Siege of Jerusalem. All right? Siege of Jerusalem. Siege of Jerusalem lasted from the 20th September to the 2nd of October, 1187, when Balian of Eblan surrendered the city of Saladin. Early that summer, Saladin had defeated the kingdom's army and conquered several cities. Balian was charged with the organizing of the defense. The city was full of refugees but had few soldiers. Despite this fact, the defenders managed to repulse several attempts by Saladin's army to take the city by storm. Balian bargained with Saladin to buy safe passage for many, and the city was peacefully surrendered with limited bloodshed. Everyone hear that? Though Jerusalem fell, it was not to the end. It was not the end of the kingdom of Jerusalem, as the capital shifted from Tyre and later on to Acre after the Third Crusade. Latin Christians responded in 1189. This is where the concept time immemorial comes from, because it originated with Richard I, son of Henry II, son of Godfrey, the fifth Caravan Jew, son of Folk, the ruler of Jerusalem, of the progeny of Jesus' bloodline. Okay, going all the way back to the Albigensian Crusade. Okay, which was the war that took place between the Cathars, and which were those. Let's go. We're going to talk about the Albigensian Crusade in a second to see the belligerent parties. Okay, but we see where I'm making the connection to the 14 Stations of Christ, and the story is told or unfolding in the events at the siege of Jerusalem in 1187, involving our family members. Okay. our family member. It says, though Jerusalem fell and was not the end of the kingdom of Jerusalem, as the capital shifted first to Tyre and later to Acre after the Third Crusade. All right. Led by Richard of Lionheart, Philip of Augustus, okay, that's Philip II, and Frederick Barbados separately. Once again, so this is the Third Crusade with Richard Lionheart and Philip of Augustus and Frederick of Barbarossa. Okay, this is the Albicinian Crusade. Okay, let's read a little bit more. Aftermath. That's the second time you repeated that, Countess Walker. Glad you're finding yourself. This is very important. Let's go back to the surrender of Jerusalem. We're talking about the siege of Jerusalem and the surrender of Jerusalem. Okay? So if Jerusalem was sieged and it was sieged by Saladin, who was in control of Jerusalem prior to the siege? Okay? It was my family. On betting his order, the Crusaders surrendered the city of Saladin army on October 2nd. The takeover of the city was relatively peaceful, especially in the contrast to the Crusade siege of the city in 1099. Okay? Vadian paid 30,000 dinars for freeing 70,000 of those unable to pay from the treasury of the city. The large golden Christian cross that had been placed over the dome of the rock by the Crusaders was pulled down, and all Muslim prisoners of war taken by the Crusaders were released by Saladin. According to the Kurdish scholars and historian Baha ad-Din Ibn Shaddad, those number closer to 3,000. Saladin allowed many of the noble women of the city to leave without paying any ransom. For example, Queen Dogwall Maria was allowed to leave the city and with retinue and associates, as was Queen Sabella. Saladin also granted Sabella safe passage to visit her captive husband, King Guy in Nablus. Okay, very important because we're talking about Queen Sabella. Who was Queen Sabella? Let's look at it. Queen Sabella. Sabella was the queen of Jerusalem from 1186 to 1190. She reigned alongside her husband Guy of Lusignan, to whom she was unwavering attached despite his unpopularity among the barons of the kingdom of Jerusalem. This is why I said you must go back and watch that movie, Kingdom of Heaven. Okay? Because Belian was a blacksmith, okay, whose father sought him out in France. His name was Godfrey of Ebelin. Ebelin, he was known. He was one of the knights for from Baldwin II, the king of Jerusalem. Okay, this Isabella was the eldest daughter of King Almerac and the oldest daughter of Agnes of Courtenay. Okay, so who was King Almerac? Okay, the father of King Isabella. Okay, she was from the house of Anjou, and her father was Almerac of Jerusalem. Okay? Almerac of Jerusalem. Who is Almerac of Jerusalem? Let's look at it real quick before we move forward. Almerac, king of Jerusalem. Almerac, formerly known in historiography as Albert I, was the king of Jerusalem from 1163 until his death. He was, in his opinion of his Muslim adversary, the bravest and cleverest of the Crusader kings. Did you hear that? One of the bravest and cleverest of the Crusader kings. All right? Almerac was the young son of who? King Folk and Queen Melisde, and brother of King Baldwin III. Who is King Folk, brothers and sisters? Let's look at it. Folk, king of Jerusalem. Folk, known as Folk the Younger and Avanju, was king of Jerusalem. His second wife, Queen Melchizedek, from 1131 until his death in 1143. Previously, he was the Count of Anjou and Folk the Fifth from 1109 to 1129. So Godfrey the Fifth, Count of Anjou, son of Folk, ruler of Jerusalem. Father is Folk the Fifth, king of Jerusalem, because he went on to rule Anjou when Folk went on to rule Jerusalem as a result of what was going on at the siege of Jerusalem, which was part of what we call the Crusade War, the Fourth Crusade War. Who is making this connection? No one, okay? Folk was originally an opponent of opponent of King Henry I of England and supporter of King Louis VI of France. But it was until 1118 and 1119 he allied with Henry when he arranged for his daughter Matilda to marry Henry's son, William and Adams. This is called the White Ship and the Anarchy, my brothers and sisters. The White Ship and the Anarchy. We must understand that King Henry I of England was the son of William the Conqueror who invaded England, okay? And folk went on pilgrimage to Jerusalem in 1119 or 1120 and became attached to the Knights of the Templars, okay? So we talk about folk, the one or the founder of the Plantagenet dynasty, which we are incorporated or are personified or incarnated as, based upon our understanding of reincarnated as our ancestors. Okay, so I'm showing you a direct historical, a direct genealogical, and a direct biological connection to the kings of Jerusalem, connected to Jesus Christ. Come on, if everyone like what they're hearing, please give me a thumbs up in the chat. Let's qualify that, all right? Let's even qualify that, all right? Let's qualify that.
The last terms. The must ask terms. Convert to Islam. Repent later.
You've told me a lot about religion.
What do you investigate?
Before I lose it, I will burn it to the ground. Your holy places, ours, every last thing in Jerusalem that drives men mad.
I wonder if it would not be better if you did. You will destroy it?
Every stone, and every Christian knight you kill will take 10 Saracens with him. You will destroy your army here and never raise another. I swear to God that to take this city will be the end of you.
Your city is full of women and children. If my army will die, so will your city. You offer terms, I ask none. I will give every soul safe conduct to Christian lands. Every soul. The women, the children, the old, and all your knights and soldiers, and your queen. Your king, such as he is, I leave to you, and what God will make of him. No one will be harmed. I swear to God. The Christians butchered every Muslim within the walls when they took the city. I am not those men. I am Salahuddin. Salahuddin. Then under these terms, I surrender Jerusalem. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you. What is Jerusalem worth? Nothing.
Everything. Right? Very important to understand this because Balian was the son of Godfrey of Balian. All right. And he went on to rule Kirat Castle. Kirat Castle was built by Folk V. Folk V built a bunch of castles in England. Okay. Balian was a blacksmith, okay, who worked with tools. I used to work at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital as an instrument technician doing the same occupation, heating up tools, okay, put them in autoclaves, okay, sterilizing them. So the same occupation that Balian had, I had, and the same obligation that Balian had, I have, is to save Jerusalem. Why? Because of remembering our ancestry, okay? Very, very, very important. I only see one thumbs up in the chat line by Brother McGarrell. I guess no one liked what was presented thus far, or everyone went to sleep. Okay, and if that is the case, shame on you. All right. Okay, so we see the station of the cross and the siege of Jerusalem all goes back to the history concerning the kings of Jerusalem, which Jesus definitely was. All right, because we know that God, what was his name? The first king of Jerusalem, Godfrey of Bouillon, never wore a crown. He said that for the true Christ or that true entity that was supposed to manifest, which happened to be me in this day and time. Okay, so as we can see, Almarak, king of Jerusalem, was a son of Folk V, king of Jerusalem, the father of Godfrey V, kind of Bantu, the father of Henry II, the son of the father of John, the father of Richard I, as well as Henry III, the father of Edward I, Edward II, and Edward III. Okay, very important to make that connection because this is what the Merovingian this is what the movie Matrix was trying to reveal to us in regards to our direct tie, not just historically, but biologically and genetically to this world family. Okay, not just here in the physical world, but the etheric world, which is what we call the spiritual world when we make our ascension. Okay, which is short to come. Let's continue on. Back to the video. Everyone still with me? Give me a thumbs up in the chat. Let me know you're still there. Besides Brother McGarrell.
And he dies.
Shark Tank. I'm a huge fan. Hey, what is your number one tip for saving money? Easy. Pay off your credit card debt as soon as possible.
Right.
Then he's resurrected.
Resurrected, right there.
It comes back more powerful than ever before.
That's right.
Is that not Jesus?
That's Jesus all time.
Joining the side of God.
That's Jesus all day.
All day.
Yeah.
All day, all night.
Day. So who's Trinity?
Well, okay, so we got it. Like
In the Catholic,
That would have to be Mary Magdalene.
okay.
But
Trinity
I'm
Mary
thinking,
Magdalene.
let
Well,
me
she
not go
does
that
take
far.
him to a sex club. That's where they meet.
I know you did, Brother
That's-
McCall. I'm talking about everybody else. Like they done went to
No.
sleep.
Yes.
They were just dancing.
No, it's a sex club.
I
You
missed-
look behind and you looking deep in the background. They didn't allow them to show all of that, but it's a sex club.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mary Magdalene, right there.
And who's Morpheus
Uh,
in the Christ mythology?
I know. I'm trying to.
He's the Baptist.
John the Baptist?
He's John the Baptist.
Oh,
The honor is mine.
because John the Baptist knows Jesus is coming
Yes, he knows who
and
he is.
sets everything up.
And he's been looking for him.
And he's been looking for him.
And when he meets him, he goes, I'm supposed to be baptized. So that's who Morpheus is in the Christ mythology.
In the Christ.
But there's also mythology, Greek mythology.
Tell me.
There's, well, Morpheus is the Lord of Dream. He's the god of dream from Greek mythology, right? Persephone, who's in the second or third movie, who's played by Monica Bellucci. The Oracle is Greek.
Yes, that's an actual oracle.
The Oracle is Greek.
Yeah.
Right.
Too bad we lost her before the second film.
Yeah.
She
And
was
then-
really
and
a
then the
strong
names-
character.
Niobe.
There's an element on the periodic table called niobium.
Is there?
Yes,
I
there
didn't know
is.
that.
Because
I didn't know
there's something about the colors that were sort of iridescent and radiant.
Okay.
And it's something about in the Greek legend,
Right.
Niobe. I don't know the full story,
Mm-hmm.
but it borrowed that from Greek legend.
Right.
Niobium.
So there's the Osiris. There's Nebuchadnezzar, which is also biblical.
Yes, of course. It's also the size of a very large bottle of wine. Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar.
You tend to find it only in Champagne because that's when it's
kingly.
a party.
It's kingly.
Yeah, it's kingly, and it's a party for 30 people.
30 people.
And you just
right.
lean the bottle. Well,
Okay.
Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar.
Is the size of a bottle of
So
wine.
there's the Gnosis. There's the Osiris.
Okay, so
Persephone.
I don't want to say mashup because that might undersell it. It's drawing from,
but it's drawing
very
from
deep.
all these traditions. It draws from Western tradition, spiritually, religiously, and Eastern tradition, spiritually, and philosophically as well.
Especially.
Yeah.
Because the scenes are not just simple scenes. You have to think about them.
No.
What's going on here and why?
Right. Like when I saw the film for the first time, I had forgotten about all of that because we had to train so hard to get the physical stuff right.
Oh, yeah.
That I forgot about all of the philosophy and all of the sort of religious
Right, you come in and film
tenets
your scene and go back to the trailer.
It's
right?
It's not that simple. It's not that simple. It was a year of work, but so much of it was physical, and we had to work so hard to do that that I really forgot about the stuff that's in the dialogue. Like my favorite stuff is in that first encounter I have with him, and I'm asking him, "Do you know why you're here?"
You didn't say that right.
Myself. Do y'all know why y'all here? Because that's what you're here for.
And this is what
you'll find out why you're
the
here.
whole thing about, do you know what the Matrix is? And I go, it's all around us. You can feel it. You go to church.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room, you can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
That
key point.
This
is
is
the
Wick
world
Studio,
that can
the
pull over
platform for
your
agencies
eyes
and
to
enterprises
blind you
built to meet
from
any brief.
the truth.
When
It's
your
the
project
world
calls for bold
that can
creativity,
pull
design's
over
really
your eyes to blind you from the truth.
That's
It's
my
the
favorite.
world
It's
that can pull over your eyes to blind you from the truth. I said it 3 times.
It's really cryptic and it's really
And
scary
ethereal.
and ethereal and very
You hear
scary.
that?
Deliberate that
He said ethereal. He said ethereal.
way. Otherwise, it's just a line.
Yeah, it's just a line. But
Yeah, you have to live
that's some of
inside
my,
that
and
book.
I had forgotten about all that stuff that's in it. And
Okay.
even the stuff with like Joe Pants and the agents when he's talking to them and he's having the dinner.
Oh, yes.
He's having his steak.
That's almost ASMR.
Yeah.
Okay, because he's He's eating the steak, and he pushes the.
And he's eating it, and he's like, I know this steak isn't real,
but my mind,
and I don't.
He's telling me it. So we have a deal.
All that stuff is just, it's fantastic.
Yeah. So that's the religious line through it, and no one doesn't love the idea of a savior. I mean, that's
right.
And a plausible savior, right? He didn't show up as Superman.
No.
Right?
No.
He had to find it in himself.
Exactly.
Just the way the Oracle had required of him.
Yeah. So that's why it's your favorite movie, because it reminds you of Jesus?
No. No, I respect storytelling.
Right.
And the stories that have outlived civilizations.
And the story of the Christ is indeed
a powerful
story.
There. It's very powerful.
Yeah.
Very powerful. So there's all of that. And then there's a few more things. Okay. They tossed in. It was a little bit, they stapled it on when the Oracle says, oh, watch out for that glass. And he says, what glass?
Oh, yeah.
And he turns around and it drops.
And he drops
and
it.
She says, that glass.
That face.
Yeah. Now here's going to be eating your craw. Would you have done it if I didn't?
If you did, exactly.
Okay. It's one of these future, trying to avoid the future, make that future happen. I thought that was unnecessary because the movie was already deep. And, and that was almost cliche sci-fi time, future prediction.
Sure.
I thought the movie was above that, but fine.
Okay. I liked it. I thought it was clever because of what they did, the way they set it up with the know thyself sign.
Oh,
above.
yeah, right.
Latin means know thyself.
And they set it up with that. And also that she's grandma and she's baking cookies.
Yeah, no, it was a full.
Her baking cookies, and she's in the projects. Like she lives in the projects.
Those are the I don't know if people know that those are the projects.
But
did they have projects in Australia?
Well, we weren't supposed to be in Australia.
No.
It takes place in a modern city.
Yeah, I think ostensibly Chicago.
Yes, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I only know that because I have the original script.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Cool.
And, And so it's the L going by.
The L. Yeah.
And
they wanted to shoot it there, but unfortunately couldn't do it.
Heart of the City.
Heart of the City.
Heart of the City.
Heart of the City.
Hotel.
Yeah.
And Wabash. And Wabash.
All right. Okay. Very important. Okay. Very important to understand what was just said in regards to the symbolism in the movie and the symbolism relative to the characters in the movie, especially Neo and Morpheus. Okay. Especially Neo and Morpheus. Okay. Why I say that? Because Neo's name was, or his family name was Mr. Anderson. Okay. His name was Mr. Anderson. So look at the origin of the word Anderson. Okay. Anderson. Etymology of the word Anderson on the Scottish West Coast. Anderson family was born among the ancient Dravidian clans. This is the Scottish clan. The name comes from the given name Andrew. The given name Andrew is derived from the Greek name Andreas, which means man or manly. Okay? The first reference in the given name Andrew was a monk of Dunfermline, who later became the bishop of Caithness. Okay? Very important. Anderson, and it originated in many countries: Denmark, Germany, Scotland, Sweden, Ireland, and Ireland. But we know when we look at the word Anderson, is derivative of a descent of a son of Anders. So where's the word or the origin of the word Anders come from? Let's look at that real quick. Ander. Not forgetting our makeup, our genetic composition, as well as it's governed by what we call neuroscience, neuromelanin. And we know neuromelanin is linked to the VMAT2 gene, and we know the VMAT2 is linked to the GOD gene, and the GOD gene is linked to transduction, and the transduction is linked to what we're about to go to now in regards to our full awareness of ourselves, i.e., know thyself. So the word Ander is German. The ancestral home of Andrew family lies in the East German region of Silesia. Silesia. The surname Andrew is derived from the Greek person name Andreas, meaning manly, and indicate a son of Anders. Okay, but it also said that it originated in as Andrews. Okay, so I got the word Andrew before we move forward. All right, because we're looking at it from a genealogical, biological, and historical connection to the royal family or God family based upon our genetic tie. All right, and true history, family crest, coat of arms is found in Scotland, Ireland, and England. As you can see, Victrix Fortuna Sapientia. Okay. As you can see, you see a depiction or characteristic of a melanated, okay, you hear that? A melanated, not light-skinned, not white-skinned, but a melanated individual looking like a brother, okay? The age-old Pictish Scottish family name Andrew is derived from the baptismal name Andrew, which Greek meaning manly. The name was popular as both personal name and a surname, likely because it was the name of a Scotland patron saint in Gaelic. The name in Andreas or Andrew, which again means manly. This is where your patron Saint Andrew comes from because it bears the cross. Okay, very important to make that connection. But yet he was connected to the term. Neil was connected to the term the one, okay, the enlightened one, but he had to come to the understanding of how he was to become the enlightened one, all right, and that was through memory. So let's go here. Okay, another snip from the Matrix. Let's see, let's break it down. Everybody got their spoons? Everybody got their spoons. Get your spoon, brothers and sisters. Let's see if you were part of the what they call potentials. See if you got any potential.
So, with the spoon.
Yes.
One side is convex, one side is concave.
Right.
You slurp out of the concave side.
Yes.
Concave, convex.
Yes.
If you look into a spoon, on the convex side,
right,
you are distorted but right side up. If you look on the concave side,
it's upside down.
You are upside down, and that was accurately captured in the freaking movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
The science was right. Right.
The optics of that
the
science.
optics of the science was right.
Mm-hmm.
So I said the optics of that science was right. Okay, very important. So let's see if we can understand the optics of that science. We know the word or the term optic had to do with eyes. Okay, and we know eyes is a faculty of sight. And we know when we said transduction is the interpretation of incoming translating or transferring signals into what we call a stimulus. Okay, very, very important. All right. So if we're looking at the optic science of it, all right, when we see from the what we call the internal self and the external self. Okay. So let's build from the external self first. Everyone grab their spoon. Okay. Everyone grab their spoon. All right, we're going to do the same experiment that Neil did, all right, in regards to trying to make the spoon bend, okay? All right, so you have what they call the concave and the convex, okay? The concave and the convex, all right? Now we see the spoon, all right? has a curvature in it. All right? Has a curvature in it. All right, now do the visual inspection of what it is that we're looking at based upon the light reflecting or light being redirected. You know what I'm saying? Because we know that transduction is the interpretation of incoming signals. Okay. Now we go back to the example that they just mentioned. Let's play it again.
Accurately captured in the freaking movie. Right? You are distorted, but
yes,
concave, convex.
Yes.
If one side is convex, one side is concave.
Right.
You slurp out of the concave side.
Yes.
Concave, convex.
Yes.
Okay. If you look into a spoon, on the convex side, you are distorted, but right side up.
Okay.
If you look on the concave side,
the convex side is the side or the middle of the spoon. Okay, is the spoon, but the side that has the what we call the curvature in it. Okay, all right, has the curvature in it. It's called the concave versus the convex. Okay, the concave is shaped like a bowl versus the convex has like a mount on it. Okay, so if you look at the concave side, you'll see that the visual or um, the perception that you see on the spoon is that the individual that you see is upside down. Okay, but if you turn the spoon, the individual you see based upon the convex side, the individual will be upright. Okay, based upon our visualization of what it is we be looking at externally, I do the eyesight. Okay, very important. Do our eyesight with the lens of the eye. It's called the cornea. Okay, and we know the cornea is a lens of transparency. Okay, it is a lens of transparency. Okay, this is the same way we should look at it as Leo is looking at it as well. But he ain't looking at it from a childlike mind. Okay, the child had to inform him that it wasn't actually him bending the spoon. It was just that the spoon that he claimed to be bending wasn't even there. Okay, let's see it for ourselves.
Upside down.
You are upside down, and that was accurately captured in the out of the concave side.
Yes.
Concave, convex.
Yes.
If you look into a spoon, on the convex side, you are distorted, but right side up. If you look on the concave side,
it's upside down.
You are upside down, and that was accurately captured in the freaking movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
The science was right.
The optics of that
the
science.
optics of the science was right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was good.
That was cool.
I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the kid saying,
"Do not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible."
Because it's math, matter.
Instead, only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.
I said, that's good. That's good.
No, it's genius, man.
No, it's good.
It's genius.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Now, here's another thing. I let it go because everyone does it, but just I'm telling you that in almost every movie where they show people crazily brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But in almost all these cases, they start moving stuff with their
mind.
With their minds.
Yes.
And it's like, there's no evidence that smart people can move stuff. You just figure things out faster or better.
Okay.
Right. I'll give you that. You
Right.
start moving things.
Right.
And then there was Lucy. Did you see Lucy?
I remember
To
Lucy.
see Lucy.
Yeah, I saw Lucy.
Okay, Morgan Freeman was in that.
Fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she starts using more of her mind, changes her hair color as she's walking down the street.
Right.
Stops bullets. You got to be in the Matrix to stop bullets.
Right.
Come on now.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyhow, so the hopefuls who were waiting in line to see the oracle.
Potentials.
Yeah, the potential.
Potential.
Yeah. So they were doing things.
Yeah, the one kid was moving the blocks.
The blocks in the air. Yeah. Okay, fine.
All right.
That's it. Fine.
It's a nice visual. It's kind of cool.
Also, the Oracle is establishing that Trinity is in love with him.
Right.
And he's oblivious to that. Okay. I was kind of oblivious to that too. I mean, I'm just, guys are just generally stupid, about these things. So, and she says, you're not too smart either.
Not too bright.
Not too bright.
I wonder what she sees in you. Ooh, not too bright either. Yeah, it's great. It's really cool. Yeah.
Because given the choice, you'll have Morpheus in one and Trinity in the other. And, so I think it was brilliantly acted by Keanu Reeves, where he's in the car and they're driving, and he said, good sushi.
Used to have noodles. I used to eat noodles there. I used to eat there. Good noodles, really good noodles.
Really good noodles.
Yeah, yeah.
And he says, none of that's real? And I'm inside of him feeling this.
Because I can't go back, can I?
Right. This is...
He's like, even if you could, would you want to?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the hardest choices because so many of us, I mean, that's another thing. Forget all the religious, mythological sentiment.
Right.
It's, what do you value more? Cypher said, put me back in my body. I don't want, I don't want,
put me back in my body.
I don't want to know anything. But
you don't want to know.
I'm a scientist and I'm curious. I kind of rather know the truth.
Right.
Because there's some chance, some hope that you can do something about the truth.
Okay, so let's do something about this truth. All right, they spoke about concave and convex. All right, and in lieu of what it is that we are looking at based upon transduction. Okay, transduction. All right, let's look at it. Transduction. Transduction is physiology. Transduction is the transfer of arriving stimulus into an action potential by a sensory receptor and begins with stimulus changes in the membrane potential of a sensory receptor. Okay? Action potential. Okay? This is very important because this is called vacuum energy. Once again, vacuum energy. All right? We must understand that. What is vacuum energy? Vacuum energy. Vacuum energy is the underlying background energy that exists in space throughout the entire universe. The vacuum energy is a special case of zero-point energy that relates to quantum vacuum. Once again, quantum vacuum. All right? You must understand what quantum vacuum is. Origin denotes to the quantum field theory states that all fundamental fields, such as the electromagnetic field, must be quantized at every point in space. Okay? Every point in space. So we're dealing with vacuum energy or point energy or what they call potential energy, which is governed under what we call thermodynamics. Okay? Thermodynamics. Okay? Very important. What is vacuum? Okay? Let's look this up real quick. Vacuum. We're talking about quantum vacuum, and we know vacuum is this state of quantum vacuum. Okay? Very important. What is vacuum? Okay? A vacuum or vacua is space devoid of matter. Matter, mass, volume. Matter, mass, volume. In classical physics, in general chemistry, matter is the substance that has mass and takes up space by having volume. So vacuum is space devoid of matter, i.e., not human beings. All right. Appropriate approximation to such vacuum is the region with a gaseous pressure much less than atmospheric pressure. Okay? All right? Physicists often discuss ideal test results that would occur in a perfect vacuum, which they sometimes simply call vacuum or free space, and use the term partial vacuum to refer to the actual imperfect vacuum as one might have in a laboratory or in space. So vacuum or quantum vacuum has to do with space void of matter. If everyone understands that, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line. If you understand that, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line. Because this is very important to understand the purpose of the spoon and what Neo was looking at, and understanding the visualization of the optic interpretation of what it is that you're actually looking at, and that will be yourself. Okay? That will be yourself. You're looking at yourself. Okay? Physically and mentally. Okay? It's a mental projection of self. All right? Very important. All right? It's also governed by what we call thermodynamics. Thermodynamics. Let's look at that real quick. Potential energy, deer point energy, or kinetic energy is all governed under thermodynamics. Okay? Thermodynamics is a branch of physics that deals with heat, work, and temperature and their relations to energy, entropy, and the physical properties of matter and radiation. The behavior of these quantities is governed by the 4 laws of thermodynamics, which conveys a quantitative description using measurable microscopic physical quantities, but may be explained in terms of microscopic constituents by statistical mechanisms. Thermodynamics applies to a wide variety of topics in science and engineering, especially physical chemistry, biochemistry, chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, but also other complex fields such as meteorology. Okay? So what is engrams? Okay? Because we talked about that. All right? Because we know matrix in biology is dealing with understanding of your cellular makeup, going back into the cell lineage, dealing with the biochemical and biophysical properties of your cell. Okay? And to remember that, that's called a process of what we call engrams. Okay? Or autobiological memory, or what we call out-of-body experience, which is a process of what we call daydreaming versus nighttime dreaming. Okay? Daydreaming versus nighttime dreaming. All right? Very important. Engram. Let's review that real quick before we go back to the video. Engrams. Engrams is a unit of cognitive information imprinted in the physical substance derived by the means by which memories are stored as biophysical or biochemical changes in the brain or other biological tissue in response to external stimuli. So this involves everything we talked about, all right? The matrix, which is the biological tissue, the changes that are going on within the tissue based upon the biochemical and biophysical properties, which is based upon organic compounds, okay? All right, organic compounds, all right, that are affecting us internally as well as externally by way of what we call stimulus or stimuli. Very, very, very important. And that can only be perceived to what we call autobiological memory. What is autobiological memory? Just define that, in case none of you know what that means. Autobiological memory. Autobiological memory, or AM, versus PM, because we know PM is when you sleep and AM is when you're up, is a memory system consisting of episodes recollected from an individual's life based on a combination of episodic, which means personal experiences and specific objects, people, or events experienced at a particular time and place, and semantic general knowledge and facts about the world, and memory, i.e., engram, and is thus a type of explicit memory. Okay? A type of explicit memory that you have to remember, not from the future, not from the present, but from the past. And in order for you to go to the past, you got to take your mind, because the body can't go, okay? Because it's subject to space-time, okay? I.e. mass, matter, volume, which according to what we call quantum vacuum, all right, or vacuum, is void of mass, okay? And we know if it's void of mass, then it acts as what we call a medium, okay? A medium where light can travel through, because light travels through medium, all right? Very important. We have autobiological memory, which helps us in our what? outer body experiences. What is an outer body experience? An experience outside of your physical body. So the only experience you can have outside of your physical body is you experience mentally. Okay? Mentally. Very simple. Outer body experience. Okay? An out-of-body experience, or OBE, is a phenomenon in which a person perceives the world as it is from a location outside of their physical body. OBE is a form of autoscopy, literally seeing yourself. Autoscopy, seeing yourself without your physical eyes, okay? Because that involves conveying convex understanding about sight. Optic illusion. Although these terms are more commonly used to refer to pathological conditions, seeing a second self or a doppelganger. Okay? Seeing your true self was another form of what we call astral projection or spirit walking. Okay? Which is assisted by what we call the VMAT2 gene or the God gene. Okay? Which can only be accessed through your neurological system with the assistance of neuromelanin, which is a gift from the gods, okay? Which is a gift from the gods, okay? This is very important because it helps us to find ourselves because it denotes to what we call daydreaming. What is daydreaming? You're doing it right now, brothers and sisters. You can do anything. You can be doing other things than sitting here daydreaming about what it is that I'm telling. Daydreaming is a stream of consciousness that detaches from the current external task when one's attention becomes focused on more personal and internal. It didn't say external, it said internal direction. Okay? This means called mental uploading. It's called mental uploading. How many of you ever heard of that? Mental uploading. All right? Very important. This is what we call a default network. Okay? Default. Let's see if we can find that. Default mode network. According to several studies, daydreaming appears to be the brain's default setting when no other external task is occupying its attention. A group of regions in the brain called default mode network is lit up only when the brain is left in a sort of idle state. Okay? This area of the brain lights up in secret only when daydreaming. Okay? This is the VMAT2 gene, brothers. All right, brothers and sisters, the God gene. Okay? Very important for you to understand that. All right? The God gene. All right, where else I want to go with this? This is also called mind uploading. What is mind uploading? All right. This helps in the transition into transparency. This helps you. Mind uploading is a speculative process of whole brain emulation in which a brain scan is used to completely emulate the mental state of an individual in a digital computer, i.e., unplugging or plugging into the matrix. We're trying to unplug instead of plugging into the matrix. The computer would then run on a simulation of the brain information processing such that it would respond in essentially the same way as the original brain and experience having what? Sentient conscious mind. Okay? With that being said, let's go back to the video.
Or you could do something with it.
Do something with it.
Mm.
If it's all just a delusion, I don't know that I want that to be my life.
Exactly.
Let me tell you my one issue.
Right.
I only have one.
The only one thing that scientifically just rubs you the wrong way.
Rubs me the wrong way,
Mhm.
and the rest of the movie was so brilliantly done.
Mhm.
I'm giving it a hall pass.
My man. Hall pass on the Matrix.
Here's your hall
That's
pass.
what's up.
All right. So you've got the scene where you are describing to Neo where he is.
Right.
There's a chair there.
The
easy
construct.
chair.
We're in the construct.
We're in the construct.
Right.
And it's white everywhere.
Right.
And brilliantly done, and there's no echo.
Right.
That was perfectly done. You described to him that the machines are using humans
as batteries.
As batteries.
As a power source.
As a power source. And there's some other language in there just to flesh out that scenario.
Right.
Here's a problem. In the laws of thermodynamics, if you have a certain amount of energy here and you turn it into another kind of energy, for example, there's chemical energy in gasoline. Right. You put that in your car, it turns it into kinetic energy to move your car. You ingest food, which is chemical energy, and you keep your body at body temperature, even though it's colder outside. When you're comfortable 72 degrees, your body is still maintaining 98 degrees.
Inside.
If you put anything outside at 98 degrees, it'll go down to 72 degrees. Even though you're saying that's a really comfortable, your body's actively maintaining your body. That takes energy.
Right.
Your body's moving. You're running. You're acting. It takes energy.
Right.
Okay? It turns out, anytime you convert energy from one form to another, you don't get 100% of it.
You don't get 100%.
No, you get like, at best, 90%. Your car, I forgot the numbers, the efficiency's grown over the years. Car might get 30% of the energy of the gas to have you move forward.
Got it.
You know where the rest goes? Into heat. That's why the engine gets hot.
Got it.
Of a combustion engine car.
Okay.
We just take it for granted. Of course it's going to get hot. Wait a minute, that's energy I wanted to use to go forward. That's miles per gallon wasted as heat. That's what happens when you convert from one form of energy
to another
form of energy.
Okay.
Okay? So now, the laws of thermodynamics dictate that it's not 100%, you don't get 100% of your energy. All right. Here are the machines using humans as a form of energy. I can tell you how much energy we radiate. Okay? We, depending on how big you are, all right, if you're exercising or not in that moment, typically between 80 and 100 watts.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
80 or 100 watt light bulb, that's how much, that's what we are. So you used a battery, and that's fine, rather than a bulb.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Yeah.
Same idea. That's not what matters here.
Right.
Okay? We are an energy source for the machines. They're tapping our 100 watts. Okay?
Yes.
Fine. Where do we get our 100 watts from?
Where do you get it from?
They're feeding us.
They're feeding us.
They're feeding us.
Right.
Whatever they're feeding us, feed themselves with that.
Oh, wow.
Bypass the middle, the literal middleman.
Yeah, the middleman. Why?
You don't need the middleman at all.
Right. Okay.
Don't feed humans, have them generate energy, and then have that energy generate the machine.
Okay.
Well, what are you doing?
Okay.
They didn't study physics.
Probably not.
But then there wouldn't be a movie.
There wouldn't be a great movie.
You just
there'd be like no people. There'd be just like a movie that you watch and you never get those 2 hours back again, and you don't have the memories and you don't have the appreciation.
You watch it, you don't have the memory. This is so important. Even though you're watching it, you don't have the memories. This is very, very important. All that thought, brothers and sisters. All right. Let's see. So, what was we at? So as we can see, uh, we are energy. Okay. This goes right back into, he said, what? Thermodynamics. Okay. Thermodynamics has to deal with what we call potential energy. All right. Potential energy. That is very important to understand that. Let's go back to quantum vacuum energy or quantum vacuum. Okay. Let's go back there. We know vacuum means void of mass, matter, or volume. Okay? So vacuum energy is underlying background of energy that exists in space throughout the entire universe. The vacuum energy is a special case of 0 point energy. All right? 0 point energy. All right? What is 0 point energy? Just look at that real quick. Oh, better listen. Is the lowest possible energy that a quantum mechanical system may have. We're talking about ourselves. Unlike in classical mechanics, quantum systems constantly fluctuate in their lowest energy state as described by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Therefore, even at absolute zero, atoms and molecules retain some vibrational motion. Apart from atoms and molecules, i.e., organic compounds, the empty space of vacuum also has these properties. Once again, the empty space of vacuum also has these properties. According to the quantum field theory, the universe can be thought of not as an isolated particle, but continuous fluctuating fields of matter fields, whose quantum are fermions, i.e., leptons and quarks, force fields, who quantum or boson photons and gluons. All these fields have 0 point energy. These fluctuating 0 point fields lead to a kind of what? Reintroduction of what? Ether and physics. Ether and physics. Okay? Once again, I repeat, ether and physics. All right? So that's the way we'll be able to make the transition out of here back to our original state, ether being. Why is this important? Let's see, brothers and sisters. Vacuum, all right, quantum vacuum, or vacuum energy, or 0 point energy. The theory considers vacuum to implicitly have the same properties as a particle, such as a spin or polarization in the case of light, energy, and so on. I repeat, the theory considers vacuum empty space, void of matter, so we're not talking about our physical bodies, brothers and sisters, okay? Even though that's what you think you are, we're not talking about that. We're talking about that which the physical body evolved from, which is light. All right, through you understanding melanin or neuromelanin, which is a result of transduction with the interpretation of electrical signals into what we call a stimuli. This is need by way of what we call a medium. You are the medium, brothers and sisters. The theory considers vacuum to implicitly have the same properties as particles, such as spin polarization and the case of light energy and so on. According to the theory, most of these properties cancel out and average, leaving the vacuum empty in a literal sense of the word. One important exception, however, is that vacuum energy or vacuum expectation value of energy, the quantization of simple harmonic oscillator requires the lowest possible energy or 0 point energy of such an oscillator. Okay? Very, very important for you to understand that because it spoke about what? Ether. Didn't it say that? It said ether. Where was that at? Okay, we can do it this way. In case of light or energy and so on. So in that retrospect, we takes us here to what we call ether. Okay? Ether. Let's look at ether. Since it's a classical element, and since we are made up of elements, let's look at ourselves. Ether. Ether, classical element. According to ancient medieval science, ether, alternative spelling including ether, aether, and ether, also known as the fifth element or quintessence, is a material that fills the region of the universe beyond the terrestrial sphere. So beyond what it is that we're subject to now, okay? Ether exists. The concept of ether was used in several theories to explain several natural phenomena such as the propagation of light and gravity. That's general theory of relativity versus special theory of relativity. All right. In the late 19th century, physics postulated that ether permeated space, providing a medium into which light could travel in a vacuum. Once again, light can travel through a vacuum. 1 second. Yes, well, all right. All right, so vacuum energy, all right, or 0 point energy is nothing more than ether, right? Ether. Here, 0 point energy. Just make sure we talking about the same thing. All these fields have 0 point energy. These fluctuating 0 point fields lead to a kind of reintroduction of ether in physics. Okay, ether and physics. So in that retrospect, let's go to ether as we were just were. Okay, ether. Ether provides a medium through which light could travel in a vacuum. Okay, which light can travel in a vacuum. Okay, what is the origin of ether? Let's see. As an element, mythical origin. The word in Homeric Greek means pure fresh air or clear sky. It was thought to be the pure essence that the gods breathed, filling the space where they live, analogous to the air breathed by mortals. So if you're a mortal, then that means you're subject to the terrestrial spirit. If you're a god, that means you're subject to the ethereal spirit, which is void of mass, matter, volume, which means that you exist outside of this universe. All right. For order for you to make that transition, you must shine. Okay? You must shine. In order for you to shine, you must burn. Okay? This is called transparency. Each is related to incinerate and transit to burn, to shine. Related to the name of either Ethiopians or Ethiopia, meaning people were burnt black facade, just as those with the surname Andrew. Okay? All right, very important for you to understand that. Okay, light permeates space where light travels through space by way of what we call a medium. Okay, a medium. That's very important. How we know that? Let's go back to where was we at? 0 point energy. 0 point energy or vacuum energy or ether, which is energy. One and the same. Okay? Vacuum energy or 0 point energy or ether energy is all we need to understand. Okay? Let's see. Okay, where we at? 0 point energy or vacuum energy. All right. Once again, 0 point energy or vacuum energy. This is also called the Lamb shift. Okay. The Lamb shift. We know that Jesus was called what? The Lamb of God, right? Jesus is called the Lamb of God. We're talking about vacuum energy or 0 point energy or ether. Okay. And Jesus was called the Lamb of God. Okay. Very important because where I'm about to go now. What is the Lamb shift? Let's look at it, brothers and sisters. The Lamb shift. Because the Lamb was supposed to come back for his sheep when the shift happens. Okay. What shift are we talking about? Let's see. Okay. What shift? In physics, the Lamb shift, named after William Lamb, is the anomalous difference in energy between two electron orbitals in a hydrogen atom. The difference was not predicated by theory and it cannot be derived from Dirac's equation, which predicates to predict identical energy. Hence, the Lamb shift is a deviation from the theory seen in the different energies contained by this mathematical equation, all right, which we ain't going to even try to understand. Let's just go to the importance of the Lamb shift, okay? In 1978, on Lamb's 65th birthday, Freeman Dyson addressed him as follows. Those years when the Lamb shift was the central theme of physics were golden years for all physics in my generation. You were the first to see that this tiny shift, so elusive and hard to measure, would clarify our thinking about particles in the field. Who was Freeman Dyson? Anyone know who Freeman Dyson was? Let's check him out. Freeman Dyson. Freeman John Dyson was a British American theoretical physics and mathematician known for his work in quantum field theory, astrophysics, random matrix, mathematical formulation of quantum mechanics, condensed matter physics, nuclear physics, and engineering. He was professor of emeritus in the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton and a member of the board of sponsors of the Bulletin of the Atomic Sciences. You hear that? This is his resume. Dyson originated several concepts that bear his name, such as the Dyson transform, a fundamental technique in indented number theory, which he developed as part of the proof of main theorem. The Dyson tree, the hypothetical genetically engineering plant capable of growing in a comet, and the Dyson series is a perturbative series where each term is represented by Feynman diagram, the Dyson sphere, which is what we want to talk about. The Dyson sphere, okay? What is the Dyson sphere? Very important. Let's look. Dyson sphere is a hypothetical megastructure, okay, that encompasses a star and captures a large percentage of its power output. The concept is thought experiment that attempts to imagine how a space-faring civilization will meet its energy requirement once those requirements exceeds what can be generated from the home planet resource alone. Because only a tiny fraction of the star's energy emission reaches the surface of any orbiting planet, building structures encircling stars will enable civilization to harvest far more energy. Okay? Very, very, very important. The first modern image of such structure was by Olaf Stephenson and his science fictional novel called The Star Maker. Let's read it this real quick. What is the Star Maker? Okay? What is the Star Maker? Or what is the plot of The Star Maker by Olaf Stephenson, going back to the what we call the Dyson sphere that is relative to what we call 0 point energy or what we call vacuum quantum vacuum, or what we call ether. Okay, very important, which means that energy without mass. Okay, energy without mass. It said a human narrative from England, notice he said England, is transported out of his body, like you're doing now, via unexplained means, daydreaming. He realized he's able to explore space and other planets after exploring in some detail a civilization on another planet in the galaxy at a level of development similar to our own that existed millions of years ago, thousands of light years from Earth, the other Earth. Did you hear that? His mind merges with that of one of its inhabitants. As they travel together, they are joined by still more minds of group minds. This snowballing process in parallel by the expansion of the book scale, describing more and more planets in less and less detail. Okay, so he's talking about transition from physical body to an outer body based upon understanding your makeup. Okay, very important. They spoke upon what they call a Dyson sphere. A Dyson sphere is what they call a megalithic structure, such as what they call a spaceship. Okay, such as a spaceship. I ain't got time to break that down, but for the sake of the argument, we're going to continue on with the lesson. Okay. So Dyson sphere and a mega structure. In this case, they're talking about what they call a white dwarf. Okay, a dying star. Okay, or exploding star. Okay, it's called a white dwarf. All right, very important. All right, let's get to it. Check this out. Since we're talking about white dwarf, or since we're talking about megalithic structures, okay, dealing with traveling intergalactically from different star systems, all right, we have another video that I talked about, but it's going to break it down even more to simplify it based upon what's actually happening within us on a DNA level or on a cellular level, okay? Only if you remember your cell lineage. Let's look at that, okay, real quick. Let's look at it. Okay, let's get it. I tell you, I better watch this movie called The Knowing. Let's look at it. Listen to what they say.
The opening scenes, Cindy hears voices whispering numbers in her mind. She stares at the sun. Voices here can be interpreted as God speaking to her. I'll explain more of that in a moment, but I'll give you a hint. This image of Ezekiel's wheel is shown a few times throughout the film. This ring around the Creator is not meant to be a halo to the sun. Cinda and her classmates draw pictures of what they think the future will look like, and then bury them in a capsule for 50 years. It's been 50 years later.
Did you guys hear that?
In this scene, we see one of the drawings which was opened after 50 years. Drawing made by
You hear that?
50
Caleb receives the rumbling Lucinda aid, which is a page full of numbers. Numbers turn out to be dates, location coordinates, so likes of lost and tragic events, even predicting the end of the world. Yet another example of how the voice of Lucinda she wrote down those numbers could have been coming from the voice of God. This scene shows Caleb's first real interaction with one of the mysterious beings. Some viewers interpret these beings to be aliens. The mysterious being shows Caleb a vision of what the end of the world
will look like and what's soon to come. This scene is vital. We see John and Diane look into Lucinda's home, Diane's deceased records. There's Ezekiel as well. Let's stop and examine that real quick. Let's stop and examine that real quick. This is a resemblance of the Merovingian dynasty in regards to the charter that was given to Clovis I for the Merovingian dynasty, which we'll look at it right here. This is actually what's taking place. Break that down. And for that, we go to the fleur de lis. All right. We use the fleur de lis to examine this revelation right here. Right? This is what's going on. This is the same example we see here told by the historical records in regards to the Merovingian dynasty, which they said Jesus' family is supposed to descend down from, but yet we see in the Matrix movie that Merovingian dynasty represents the devil, contrast to God and God's family, which Jesus is supposed to be affiliated with. Okay? But we know the symbol on this scarf is represents Jesus' family, which is the fleur de lis, i.e., the Immaculate Conception of the Virgin Mary, which happens to be Mary Magdalene, okay, which is actually in the possession of England, France, and Castile, going back to the history concerning what we call the relic of Mary Magdalene, okay? I ain't got time to break that down, but you can go back and visit the past lecture, okay? So this story is actually the story told about in that breakdown in that movie, and it's known in Hebrew Bible as the Ophanim. Let's look at that. Ophanim. Okay? Let's look at it. Ophanim. The Ophanim or will, singular alternately spelled Ophanim or Ophanim, is also called Galgalim. Spears, wills, whirlwinds, singular or Galgal, referring to wills seen in Ezekiel vision of the chariot. Now we understand that the spear and spear sounds like the same word. We know that dealing with descendancy, they're called spear-sided. And hence we hear the word spear, right? Which means wills or whirlwinds. The chariots, one of those Dead Sea Scrolls construes that did them as angels. Late sections of the Book of Enoch portrays them as classical celestial beings who, along with the cherubim seraphim, never sleep, but guard the throne of God in some system of Christian and angelology, and they are one of the choir classes of angels and are also identified as thrones. Okay, very important. And the Independence Time story, we record that. We record the same story historically, okay, as they told in the movie symbolically. Okay, very important. Let's look at it. Independence Time reform. right? This is the same thing you're looking at. The four angels, okay? This is the ship, okay? You notice when you see these kings, they always have stars behind them, okay? This is Jesus Christ, there's St. Peter, there's Mary, and there's the four angels right there, okay? All that is talking about the Ophanim, okay? Representing the same thing, but in our story, it refers to what we call, it is called the New Ministers Charter, okay? It's called the New Ministers Charter. The English Benedictine Reform is rooted in what we call the New Ministers Charter, okay? What you see here. The same depiction, okay? New Ministers Charter is an Anglo-Saxon illuminated manuscript that was likely composed by Bishop Ethelwald and presented to the new ministers in Winchester by King Edgar in the year 966 AD to commemorate the Benedictine Reform. And we know that the Franciscan and Dominican orders, which were all orders that were different from the Benedictine monastery, going back to St. Benedict of Nursia, if you know the history, okay? But yet you see the same examples that you'll see in the movie, The Knowing, okay? That's what this depiction represents, this depiction, to open it. Okay? And what's about to take place. You see the burning city of what's going on. The four horsemen, okay? What we call here Ezekiel's will, or what we call the megalithic structure, or what they call the Dyson Sphere, okay, which is nothing more than a spaceship traveling through space and time from one universe to another. Because universe means what? Space and what? Time. And time never was when we was not. So life and time begin, the time will come when we will be no more. Okay? Very important for you to understand that. Right? Let's see. Let's see. Where are we at? So I say all this to say in regards to how we see and visualize what it is that we're talking about. It's based upon how Neo was observing that spoon. Okay, all right, and he had to be broken down to a childlike state, like each and every one of you had to be done in regards to re-identifying with your true self. Okay, based upon understanding how you see yourself through the process of a transduction. Okay, all right, the process of seeing yourself through your external and internal self. Internally, you must see yourself mentally. Externally, you must see yourself physically, okay? And physically is through your five senses, okay? And that's the only source we have because we don't know no other means of doing so, okay? Very important for you to understand that. Let's go ahead. All right, let's see. So transduction, let's go here. Transduction, everyone see it. Let's just see it. Let's go through it again. And physiology transduction into translation of a rhyming stimulus to an action potential. And we know that action potential is called 0-point energy, or what we call quantum vacuum or vacuum quantum, which is nothing more than what we call ether. Okay? Ether, because we know that light travels through a vacuum, all right, which is what we call a medium. Okay? And physiology transduction is the translation of arriving stimulus to an action potential by sensory receptors and beginning with the stimulus of changes the membrane potential of a sensory receptor. So the light or the waves or the frequencies through what we call oscillation, we are able to interpret through the collection of those signals or information, and that in turn are transferred into or turn into what we call a stimuli, okay? And then we have to, or the brain has to interpret that through the neural system or neurological system do neuromelanin, which is based upon melanin, which is worked upon what we call the neurotransmitter subject to the VMAT2 gene or the God gene. Okay, very, very important. The reason why I focus on transduction is a result of the eyes, because eyes are what? The windows to the soul. Let's look at it. Okay, because when you look at that spoon, right, they talked about concave and convex. Okay, concave and convex, very important. Coming to our close. Okay, and the only reason why I say that because if you claim to be a follower of Jesus and to be looking at things in the mental or the conscious way Jesus would see things, then you must look at it in the conscious way. The child told Neo to observe the spoon, and he said, "Don't imagine you've been in the spoon. Rather realize that there is no spoon." Okay, there is no spoon. When you can do that, then you can become an apostle because now you have the gift of insight. Okay. So how many of you have the gift of insight? Because as we can see here, it says the apostle spoon is a spoon, usually silver or silver plated, but sometimes in other metals such as pewter, with an image of an apostle or other saint as the terminal of the handle, each bearing his distinctive emblem. Apostle spoons were particularly popular prior to the Reformation. They symbolized the Last Supper of the Christ and the company of his apostles. Apostle spoons were especially popular in what? England, but were also found in large number in Germany. Did you hear that? They were popular in England. It didn't say Jerusalem, it said England. This is very, very important for us to understand, because we understand that when we see the spoon, as Neo was told to see the spoon based upon his perception, it was through his visualization through the process of transduction, which the eyes is one of the faculties in which transduction is accompanied or it's applied. All right. So we ain't gonna look at the other four faculties. We're gonna look at that one faculty called the eyes. Okay. So let's go to it. Okay. In regards to what we call the cornea. All right. The cornea. Let's see. In closing. What is the cornea, brothers and sisters? Let's blow it up. You see the cornea. You see the lens. Okay. The cornea is composed of the concave and convex. Once again, the cornea is composed of the concave and convex. But we must understand what concave and convex mean. Okay, this is very important in lieu of us visualizing what it is that we are receiving based upon what we call quantum vacuum or what we call 0 point energy or what we call ether, because we know light travels through vacuum, and vacuum means empty space. Okay, vacuum means empty space, and that vacuum is that quantum vacuum. Okay, very important. So let's go back to cornea and just read the definition of cornea. Cornea. Cornea is a transparent front part of the eyeball, which covers the iris pupil and the anterior chamber, along with the anterior chamber and lens. The cornea refracts light, accounting for the approximately 2/3 of the eye's total optical power. Now you know when they spoke about it and in the movie, in the Matrix clip that we showed, they talk about optical power or eye power. Okay, the ability to be able to do visualization and what we call transduction, be able to interpret those signals to allow us to send based upon our understanding of our chemical and biophysical self, based upon memory of ourselves, going back to that quantum state of ourselves, which is 0 point energy. All right, let's see it. How can we do that? The cornea is the transparent front part of the eyeball, which covers the iris pupil and anterior chamber. Along with the anterior chamber and lens, and cornea refracts light, accounts for approximately 2/3 of the eye's total optical power. Now, when we look at the definition for cornea and we look at the movie in lieu of Neo, which represents Jesus being taught as a child, because when they said when I was a child, I thought like a child. When I became an adult, I put away childish ways. Well, hell, some of the adults are just as dumb as children because the children are more smarter than the adults as a result of them not being exposed to fraudulent information or fraudulent things that do them no good as a result of them misinterpreting that light or misinterpreting that signal based upon the stimuli. Because we have good stimulation, we have bad stimulation. Okay, so once again, the cornea is the transparent part of the eyeball. Okay, the transparent part of the eyeball. And we know we have the convex and the the convex and the concave. Okay, the convex is the, let's see at it. Let's go ahead. Structure. Let's look at it. Look at it, brothers and sisters. Break it down. Now we know ether is light, and light travels through a medium by way of vacuum, and vacuum is empty space, which is void of matter. And we know that if dark people or those Ethiopians or those Libyan Berbers were those of dark-skinned, i.e., Berber people, then that means that they're going through a transition from one phase to another. They just have to realize the transition that's going on. And the only way you can do that is by the means which I'm showing you. Okay? So let's look at it. Okay. Cornea. Overview. When light enters the eyes, the cornea and the lens, both of which are convex, work together to focus on light rays onto the retina, allowing us to see. So convex allows the ability for us to focus on the light that we now are receiving as a result of what we call transduction. And our obligation is to make sense of that light, which are signals in turn turn into what we call an impulse. Okay, so when we see light, like Leo is seeing light, like we are seeing light, based upon our visualization of this lesson, as well as the hearing of this lesson, we see and can confirm that when light enters the eyes, the cornea and the two lenses, both of which are convex, work together to focus the light rays onto the retina, allowing us to see. And we see the cornea is the shape of what we call a dome. Okay? Here are more detailed explanations of the cornea. The cornea, the clear front part of the eye, is a curved surface that acts like a convex lens, starting the process of focusing light. Once again, the cornea, the clear front part of the eye, is a curved surface that acts like a convex lens, starting the process of being able to focus light. The pupil. Light enters the eyes through the pupil, the opening of the iris. Lens. The lens, also convex, further focuses the light, ensuring its convergence precisely on the retina. Okay? And then we have bear with me. Now we have the retina. Okay? The retina at the back of the eye contains light-sensitive cells, rods, and cones that convert the light signals into electrical signals that are sent to the brain for interpretation. Did you hear that? Transduction, brothers and sisters. Concave lens, okay? You got convex, now we're dealing with concave. If the eyelids were concave, i.e. divergent, it would cause light waves to spread out, preventing them from focusing on the retina and resulting in what? A blurry vision. Okay? A blurry vision. We're not talking about external blurry vision. We're talking about an internal blurry vision. All right? Because we're dealing with a mental valuation versus external valuation. Okay, so it says the lens can change its shape to focus on objects at different distances, a process called accommodation. This is where Morpheus comes in. Okay, very important. But it said the cornea is what? Transparent. The cornea is transparent. So let's look at the word transparency. All right, transparency. In closing. In closing, the cornea is a lens of transparency. Okay? Allows for us to focus the light. And light is ether. Okay? Light is ether. And ether is void of matter, mass, volume. All right? So when he said, when you're looking at the spoon, don't think that you're actually bending the spoon, because when you bend the spoon, it's a curve. Whether you realizing that there is no spoon, because you're only receiving a mental image as a result of what the brain is trying to decipher based upon the process which we call transduction. Okay, to bring that transparency. Okay, because it said transparent, presenting no obstacles to the passage of light, so that what is behind can be distinctly seen. Early transparente, from medieval Latin transparentum, nominative transparens, meaning participle of transparere, show light through. Once again, show light through, from Latin trans, across, beyond, through, see trans, and parent means come in sight, appear, submit, or obey. So transparent is the ability for a light from your ancestors to now travel to you, as well as allow you to understand that light through knowing yourself, or discernment of thyself. All right, seeing yourself from your true self. Okay, not physically but mentally, i.e., a mental being. A mental being. What else? Good. Yeah, all right. So transparent, going back to the cornea. Cornea. Right? Cornea function refract light. And once again, energy is light originated from the source. Okay? The source. So if light originates from the source and you're receiving a fraction of that light and not the fullest of the potential of that light, then we have some work to do. Okay? We have some work to do. Because if we read in closing, there's an article which I'm not going to read. Article says scientists says human consciousness comes from another dimension. Once again, human consciousness comes from another dimension. Okay? So another dimension is a dimension that exists outside this time and space. And the time and space that our ancestors and our creators come from is void of matter because they are, in fact, ethereal. Okay? This is what the movie Matrix was trying to tell you. This is what I was trying to tell you. And this is what your ancestors were trying to tell you. Okay? But if you're not listening, then that means that you're not those descendants. Okay? You are not those descendants. So with that, I think I covered everything in regards to understand that we are in fact light beings and that we're having a physical experience here on a place or a plane that does not in fact exist mentally. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna greet you as I always greeted you, and that's always in peace and love. All right, because as we see, Jesus is holding up the peace sign because he in fact was in true King of Peace. And with that,